Officers Thomas Reed and Sarah Martinez of Patrol Unit 247 arrived at St. Mary's Church in Brookline, a suburban area of Boston, Massachusetts, responding to reports of gunfire during a wedding ceremony. The call came from Father Michael O'Connor at 11:42 a.m. on June 30, 2023. What awaited the officers transformed an ordinary summer morning patrol into one of the most notorious cases in Massachusetts criminal history. The nave of St. Mary's Church, an impressive Gothic revival structure built in 1898, presented a scene of unprecedented violence. White roses and silk ribbons carefully arranged for the celebration now lay scattered and blood-stained across the century-old marble floor. Rachel Morrison, the bride, lay motionless near the altar, a growing crimson stain spreading across the white fabric from a single bullet wound to her chest. James Hunter, the groom, was found sprawled near the main entrance, his body showing severe trauma consistent with high-impact vehicular collision. The third victim, initially unidentified, but later confirmed as Kristen Hunter, was discovered in the north transept, her body positioned between the wooden pews where wedding guests had sat moments earlier. The immediate crime scene assessment revealed crucial evidence. A Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm handgun, registered to Olivia Brooks, was recovered near the altar steps. The weapon's location and position suggested it had been dropped rather than placed, indicating the chaotic nature of the events. A brown leather Salvatore Ferragamo briefcase, found partially open near the groom's body, contained meticulously organized documentation of elaborate financial schemes. The papers detailed fraudulent activities across 3 states, with transaction records, fake identity documents, and correspondence with multiple financial institutions, revealing a sophisticated operation that had defrauded victims of approximately $800,000. 53 wedding guests remained at the scene, their formal attire contrasting sharply with their shocked expressions and tear-stained faces. Among them were prominent members of the Boston educational community, colleagues of Rachel Morrison from the Franklin Elementary School where she taught 3rd grade. James Hunter's supposed business associates, who would later be identified as unwitting participants in his schemes, sat stunned in the front pews. The children present at the ceremony, including the flower girl and ring bearer, were immediately separated and placed under the care of trauma-specialized child psychologists from Boston Children's Hospital. The church's advanced security system, installed following a series of vandalism incidents in 2022, provided investigators with high-definition footage from multiple angles. The cameras captured the ceremony's progression from its beginning at 11:20 a.m. through the tragic events that followed. The footage showed Olivia Brooks, the maid of honor, rising from her seat beside the altar, her face displaying a mixture of determination and anguish as she moved to interrupt the exchange of vows. The subsequent entrance of Kristen Hunter, accompanied by 2 young children, served as the catalyst for the violence that followed. Boston Police Department's Major Crime Unit, under Detective Michael Burns, established a comprehensive crime scene perimeter. The forensics team, led by Dr. Jennifer Walsh, methodically documented and collected evidence, including blood spatter patterns that would later prove crucial in reconstructing the sequence of events. Residue testing was immediately conducted on the hands of all present parties, while surveillance footage from neighboring buildings was secured to track any potential suspects who might have fled the scene. The incident's impact extended beyond the immediate tragedy. St. Mary's Church, a cornerstone of the Brookline community for over 120 years, became the focus of national media attention. Local residents gathered behind police lines, many holding impromptu vigils despite having no connection to the victims. The event would later be cited in academic studies of fraud-related violence and would prompt the Massachusetts legislature to implement stricter background check requirements for marriage license applications. Detective Michael Burns arrived at St. Mary's Church with his team from Boston Police Department's Homicide Unit. After 15 years investigating violent crimes, Burns had developed a methodical approach to crime scenes, but the complexity of this case demanded exceptional attention to detail. The veteran detective's initial assessment focused on 3 victims and 1 suspect, each representing a different aspect of what would become one of Massachusetts' most intricate criminal investigations. The first victim, Rachel Morrison, age 28, worked as a 3rd-grade teacher at Franklin Elementary School. Her personnel records, obtained within hours of the incident, painted a picture of an exemplary educator with numerous commendations. Colleagues described her as diligent and caring, with no indication of involvement in any suspicious activities. Morrison's bank records, however, revealed recent unusual financial activity. Multiple loan applications totaling $145,000, all submitted within the 3 months preceding her death. James Hunter, the 35-year-old groom, presented the most complex aspect of the investigation. His position as a regional manager at Atlantic Insurance Group appeared legitimate at first glance, but deeper scrutiny revealed inconsistencies. The company's Human Resources Department confirmed his employment since January 2022, yet his personnel file contained irregularities in background verification. Hunter's academic credentials from Princeton University, listed on his resume, proved fraudulent upon verification. His Social Security number matched multiple aliases used across different states. The third victim, initially unidentified, was confirmed through fingerprint analysis as Kristen Hunter, age 32. Her presence at the wedding introduced a stunning revelation. She was legally married to James Hunter, with their marriage certificate filed in Seattle, Washington, dated September 15, 2018. The couple had 2 children, ages 6 and 4, who were present at the church during the incident. Kristen's background check revealed she was a software engineer at Microsoft, with a spotless record and substantial savings that had been systematically depleted over the previous year. The primary suspect, Olivia Brooks, age 31, surrendered to officers at the scene. As a licensed private investigator with credentials in Massachusetts and New York, Brooks operated a successful agency specializing in financial fraud cases. Her surrender was accompanied by a USB drive containing extensive documentation of Hunter's activities, including surveillance photos, financial records, and correspondence with previous victims. Brooks's firearm, the murder weapon, was legally registered and regularly maintained, according to her concealed carry permit records. Detective Burns coordinated with multiple jurisdictional authorities to process witness statements from the 53 wedding guests. The testimonies revealed a pattern of calculated deception by Hunter, who had apparently maintained multiple fictional identities across different social circles. Several guests from Hunter's side were identified as business associates who had unwittingly participated in his fraudulent schemes, while others were potential marks for future scams. The forensics team, processing the church scene, recovered crucial digital evidence from Hunter's smartphone, revealing communication with at least 8 other women across the country. Each conversation followed a similar pattern: romantic involvement followed by discussions of joint business ventures requiring significant financial investment. The total estimated fraud amount, initially thought to be $800,000, was revised upward as more victims were identified. Brooks's role as both the bride's best friend and the person who exposed Hunter's schemes complicated the investigation. Her professional background suggested she had the skills to uncover Hunter's fraudulent activities, while her personal connection to Morrison added an emotional dimension to her actions. During initial questioning, Brooks provided a detailed timeline of her investigation into Hunter, including surveillance logs, financial tracking, and correspondence with law enforcement agencies in other states. The investigation expanded to include the FBI's white-collar crime division, as the scope of Hunter's activities crossed state lines and involved substantial financial fraud. Agent Sarah Thompson was assigned as federal liaison, bringing additional resources and access to national databases that would prove crucial in unraveling Hunter's complex network of deception. Detective Burns established a dedicated task force, operating from a converted conference room at Boston Police Headquarters. The walls were covered with timeline charts, victim profiles, and financial transaction records, creating a visual representation of a criminal enterprise that had operated undetected for years. The case demanded a delicate balance between solving a triple homicide and exposing a sophisticated fraud scheme that had victimized dozens of individuals across multiple states. Detective Burns and FBI agent Thompson uncovered a pattern of deception dating back to 2016, when Hunter first began his criminal enterprise while maintaining a seemingly legitimate career at Atlantic Insurance Group in Seattle. Hunter's earliest documented victim was Patricia Reynolds, a 41-year-old pharmaceutical sales representative from Portland, Oregon. In March 2016, Hunter, using the alias Michael Crawford, convinced Reynolds to invest $95,000 in a fictitious medical supply company. The funds, withdrawn from her retirement account, disappeared along with Hunter 2 months later. Reynolds's police report, initially dismissed as a civil matter, became the first piece in a complex puzzle of fraud that spanned the western United States. The marriage to Kristen Hunter, previously a senior software engineer at Microsoft, represented Hunter's most elaborate long-term deception. Their relationship began in 2017, when he was working under his legal name at a Seattle insurance firm. Bank records showed that Kristen's substantial tech industry salary and savings had been systematically drained through a series of investment opportunities Hunter had presented. By the time of her death, approximately $245,000 of her personal assets had been transferred to accounts Hunter controlled through shell companies registered in Delaware and Wyoming. Between 2019 and 2022, Hunter operated simultaneously in Washington, Oregon, and California, maintaining multiple identities supported by expertly forged documentation. The FBI's forensic accounting team identified 5 additional victims during this period. Sarah Martinez, San Francisco, $124,000. Jennifer Chen, Los Angeles, $86,000. Maria Rodriguez, San Diego, $93,000. Elizabeth Cooper, Portland, $112,000. And Amanda Fisher, Seattle, $78,000. Each case followed a similar pattern. Hunter would establish a romantic relationship, propose marriage, and then orchestrate financial schemes that left his victims with substantial debt. Hunter's methodology demonstrated sophisticated understanding of banking systems and fraud detection mechanisms. He utilized a network of legitimate-appearing business entities, registered through different agents across multiple jurisdictions. The companies, Horizon Medical Supply LLC, Pacific Rim Investments Group, and Coastal Development Partners, all featured professional websites, telephone answering services, and seemingly valid business credentials. These facades helped convince victims and financial institutions of the legitimacy of his investment proposals. The investigation uncovered Hunter's true background through military records. Born James Allen Hunter in 1988 in Tacoma, Washington, he served briefly in the U.S. Navy before receiving a general discharge in 2010. His post-military career included legitimate positions in insurance sales, providing him with the knowledge and credentials he later exploited in his criminal activities. Educational records revealed he had attended community college in Washington State, not Princeton University, as claimed on his various resumes. A breakthrough in understanding Hunter's operations came from analyzing his digital footprint. Forensic examination of his laptops revealed detailed spreadsheets tracking potential victims, including personal information, financial assets, and vulnerability assessments. The documents showed he specifically targeted professional women aged 28 to 45, preferring those with substantial savings or strong credit ratings. Each victim was assigned a risk score and potential yield value, demonstrating the calculated nature of his schemes. The most disturbing aspect of Hunter's operation was his manipulation of legitimate business connections. His position at Atlantic Insurance Group provided access to client financial information, which he used to identify potential victims. The company's internal investigation revealed he had accessed the files of over 200 female clients, creating a database of potential targets. His role as a regional manager allowed him to travel frequently, providing cover for his multiple identities and relationships. The investigation also revealed Hunter's careful study of law enforcement procedures. His schemes were deliberately structured to fall into gray areas between civil and criminal matters, making it difficult for victims to attract serious police attention. He maintained detailed records of relevant statutes and case law, suggesting he had carefully planned his legal exposure. This documentation, recovered from his cloud storage accounts, provided investigators with a clear picture of his methodology, while also demonstrating the premeditated nature of his crimes. Analysis of financial records expanded the scope of Hunter's activities beyond the initially estimated $800,000 in fraud. By tracking transactions through multiple shell companies and offshore accounts, FBI forensic accountants eventually documented total losses exceeding $1.2 million, affecting victims across 7 states. The money trail led to accounts in the Cayman Islands and Belize, suggesting Hunter had developed an exit strategy that was interrupted by the events at St. Mary's Church. The involvement of Olivia Brooks, a licensed private investigator and Rachel Morrison's best friend since their college days at Boston University, added a complex layer to the investigation. Brooks's personal investigation into James Hunter began on March 15, 2023, when she accidentally encountered Sarah Martinez at a professional conference in San Francisco. Martinez, still recovering from her $124,000 loss, recognized Hunter's photo on Brooks's phone wallpaper, a group picture from Rachel's engagement party. Brooks's investigative files, surrendered to police, detailed a methodical 3-month investigation that demonstrated both her professional expertise and personal anguish. Her surveillance logs documented 84 hours of direct observation, 156 hours of digital tracking, and extensive financial forensics. She had utilized her professional licenses to access databases that revealed Hunter's multiple identities and his pattern of fraudulent activities. The investigation revealed that Brooks had discovered Hunter's true identity within 2 weeks of beginning her investigation. Her methodology included advanced digital forensics, analyzing Hunter's online presence across multiple platforms. She traced his activities through social media aliases, financial records, and corporate registries. The breakthrough came when she connected his legitimate employment history at Atlantic Insurance Group to a series of suspicious company formations in Delaware. Following the money trail, Brooks tracked Hunter's movements to Seattle, where she uncovered his legal marriage to Kristen Hunter. Her surveillance photographs documented Hunter's double life, playing the role of devoted husband and father in Seattle, while simultaneously planning his wedding to Rachel in Boston. Brooks compiled video evidence of Hunter interacting with his children at school events and family outings, all while maintaining his engagement to Rachel through daily phone calls and weekly video chats. Brooks's personal diary, recovered from her apartment, revealed her emotional struggle with the investigation. Entries detailed her conflict between protecting her friend and gathering enough evidence to ensure Hunter's conviction. She wrote, "Every time I see Rachel planning her wedding, choosing flowers, and talking about her future, I feel like I'm betraying her by keeping silent. But I need absolute proof. I can't risk her not believing me." The investigation uncovered that Brooks had contacted Boston Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit on June 25, 5 days before the wedding. She spoke with Detective Sarah Coleman, providing preliminary evidence of Hunter's fraud scheme. The police report indicated that while the evidence was compelling, the department required additional time for verification before taking action. Brooks had requested police presence at the wedding, anticipating a potential confrontation, but the request was pending review at the time of the incident. Email records showed Brooks had also reached out to Hunter's previous victims, building a network of witnesses willing to testify about his schemes. She established a secure online repository of evidence, sharing access with law enforcement agencies in multiple jurisdictions. Her documentation included recorded conversations, financial transactions, and sworn statements from victims, creating an irrefutable case against Hunter. Brooks's professional background proved crucial to her investigation. Her agency, Brooks Investigative Services, specialized in financial fraud cases, giving her access to tools and methodologies typically reserved for law enforcement. She utilized advanced surveillance technology, including GPS tracking devices and financial monitoring software, to document Hunter's activities. Her investigation adhered to strict legal guidelines, ensuring all evidence would be admissible in court. The psychological impact of the investigation on Brooks became evident through her communications with her therapist, Dr. Elena Rodriguez. Session notes, subpoenaed as part of the investigation, revealed Brooks's increasing anxiety and moral distress. She expressed fear that direct confrontation might lead to violence, given Hunter's history of aggressive responses when previously confronted by victims. On the morning of the wedding, Brooks had prepared a detailed dossier for presentation to law enforcement. Her plan, outlined in a document timestamped at 6:23 a.m. that day, was to prevent the ceremony through legal intervention. She had arranged for representatives from the FBI's Financial Crimes Unit to be present, but their planned arrival at 11:30 a.m. came too late to prevent the tragic sequence of events that began at 11:23 a.m. The investigation revealed that Brooks had taken precautions to ensure Rachel's safety during the planned confrontation. She had hired 2 private security professionals to be present among the wedding guests, and her legitimate firearm was intended only as a last resort for personal protection. However, the unexpected arrival of Kristen Hunter and her children created a volatile situation that exceeded all planned contingencies. Forensic analysis and witness testimonies provided a precise reconstruction of the events at St. Mary's Church on June 30, 2023. The church's security system, equipped with multiple high-definition cameras, captured the sequence of events that transformed a wedding ceremony into a crime scene in less than 2 minutes. At 11:22 a.m., Father Michael O'Connor began the exchange of vows. The surveillance footage showed Olivia Brooks seated in her position as maid of honor, displaying visible signs of distress. Her hand repeatedly touched the leather handbag containing both her licensed Smith & Wesson 9mm handgun and the documentary evidence of Hunter's crimes. At 11:23 a.m., just as James Hunter began his vows, Brooks rose from her seat. The audio recording captured her clear, unwavering voice. "Stop the ceremony. James Hunter is a fraud and already married." Simultaneously, the church's side door opened, revealing Kristen Hunter accompanied by her children, Emma, 6, and Michael, 4. The timing, later determined to be coincidental rather than planned, created an immediate visual confirmation of Brooks's accusations. Kristen Hunter, dressed in business attire, carried a file folder containing her marriage certificate and family photographs. The next 37 seconds proved catastrophic. Rachel Morrison, still standing at the altar in her wedding dress, turned toward her friend Olivia Brooks. Security footage showed Morrison's movement toward Brooks's handbag, her hand reaching inside and emerging with the 9mm handgun. Multiple witnesses confirmed hearing Morrison's words. "You knew? You knew all this time?" The following sequence occurred in rapid succession, documented by both surveillance footage and forensic evidence. Morrison, with no prior firearms experience, aimed the weapon at Hunter, who had begun moving toward the main church exit. Brooks immediately attempted to disarm Morrison, leading to a struggle that lasted approximately 8 seconds. Audio analysis identified 3 distinct voices during this struggle: Morrison demanding answers, Brooks pleading for her to release the weapon, and Hunter shouting about a misunderstanding. At 11:23 a.m., during the struggle between Brooks and Morrison, the weapon discharged. Ballistics analysis confirmed that the angle of the bullet's trajectory matched Brooks's account of an accidental discharge during the disarmament attempt. The 9mm round struck Morrison in the chest, penetrating her heart and causing immediate catastrophic injury. The bride collapsed at 11:23 a.m. James Hunter's attempt to flee the scene led to the second fatality. Traffic camera footage from outside the church showed Hunter running into Berkeley Street without checking for vehicles. A Cisco delivery truck, traveling at 28 miles per hour, confirmed by the vehicle's electronic logging device, struck Hunter at 11:24 a.m. The impact threw him 47 feet, causing multiple traumatic injuries that proved immediately fatal. The third death occurred inside the church. Kristen Hunter, witnessing both the shooting and her husband's flight, suffered an acute myocardial infarction. Medical records later revealed she had an undiagnosed congenital heart condition. Security footage showed her clutching her chest and collapsing in the side aisle at 11:24 a.m. Despite immediate medical attention from Dr. Marcus Chen, a cardiologist who had been among the wedding guests, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The children, Emma and Michael Hunter, were quickly shielded from the scene by wedding guests Sarah Thompson and Robert Martinez, both off-duty school teachers who recognized the need to protect the minors from the unfolding trauma. They were taken to the church office, where they remained until child services arrived at 12:15 p.m. Olivia Brooks's actions immediately following the shooting demonstrated both shock and professional training. She secured the weapon, immediately called 911, call logged at 11:24 a.m., and began administering first aid to Morrison while instructing guests to secure the scene. When police arrived at 11:28 a.m., Brooks had already organized the guests into groups based on their witness perspectives and was preventing contamination of the crime scene. The total time from Brooks's initial statement to the final fatality was 1 minute and 23 seconds. In that brief span, 3 lives ended, 2 children were orphaned, and multiple witnesses experienced trauma that would require long-term psychological intervention. The church's security cameras continued recording for hours afterward, documenting the arrival of emergency services, law enforcement, and eventually, the medical examiner's team. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts versus Olivia Brooks began on September 15, 2023, in Suffolk County Superior Court, with Judge Margaret Whitman presiding. The trial, which lasted 4 months, became one of the most closely watched legal proceedings in recent Massachusetts history, drawing coverage from major networks and raising complex questions about moral obligation and criminal responsibility. District Attorney Robert Hamilton pursued charges of involuntary manslaughter, presenting evidence that Brooks's actions, while not intentionally lethal, created the circumstances that led to 3 deaths. The prosecution argued that Brooks's decision to confront Hunter during the ceremony, rather than preventing the wedding through legal channels, demonstrated reckless disregard for potential consequences. They emphasized her professional training should have made her aware of the risks involved in such a public confrontation. Defense attorney Catherine Martinez constructed a compelling narrative of Brooks's attempts to protect her friend through legal means. Evidence presented included Brooks's documented communications with law enforcement prior to the wedding, her meticulous investigation of Hunter's crimes, and expert testimony regarding the psychological impact of discovering a close friend's imminent victimization. The defense team brought forward multiple victims of Hunter's previous schemes, whose testimonies illustrated the devastating financial and emotional damage he had inflicted. The trial revealed additional victims of Hunter's fraud scheme, bringing the total known financial impact to $1.4 million across 9 states. FBI testimony detailed how their investigation, building on Brooks's evidence, uncovered offshore accounts and shell companies that Hunter had established for future operations. This evidence proved crucial in the civil proceedings that followed, allowing for partial recovery of victims' losses. On January 12, 2024, after 8 days of deliberation, the jury found Brooks guilty of involuntary manslaughter, but acquitted her of more serious charges. Judge Whitman, acknowledging both the tragic consequences and mitigating circumstances, sentenced Brooks to 15 years at Massachusetts Correctional Institution, Framingham, with possibility of parole after 8 years. The sentence included mandatory psychological counseling and a requirement to participate in fraud prevention education programs. Emma and Michael Hunter, orphaned by the tragedy, were placed under the guardianship of their maternal aunt, Dr. Sarah Chen, a pediatrician in Seattle. The court established a trust fund for the children using recovered assets from their father's fraud scheme, ensuring their financial security through adulthood. Dr. Chen initiated therapy sessions for both children to help them process the trauma and understand their father's true nature in an age-appropriate manner. Brooks's final statement to the court, which made headlines nationwide, reflected the complex moral dimensions of the case. "I wanted to protect my friend, but my truth proved lethal. Sometimes silence is safer than a truth that can kill." The statement sparked widespread debate about the responsibilities and limits of friendship, professional obligation, and moral duty. The repercussions of the St. Mary's Church tragedy extended beyond the immediate legal proceedings. The case became a landmark study in law enforcement training programs, examining the intersection of financial crimes and violent outcomes. The FBI incorporated the case into its training materials for agents investigating romance scams, using it to illustrate the potential for violence in fraud investigations. Olivia Brooks began serving her sentence on January 15, 2024, while her legal team prepared an appeal based on new evidence of Hunter's more extensive criminal network. The case continues to resonate with the public, serving as a cautionary tale about the devastating consequences of financial fraud and the complex moral choices faced by those who uncover such crimes.